They're like, at the end of 75 hard, here's what I will accomplish. Being able to say that I did 75 hard.
What is the spirit of something rather than the letter of something? The thing that anyone can get from any challenge is to challenge themselves.
Create your own scoreboard, be intentional, and understand what villain you're really trying to fight with whatever challenge.
It would help to have something like 75 hard or some other challenge I give myself, simply because it creates a ballast.
This is the Coaches Council, made up of 6 elite coaches dedicated to serving and ending personal struggle for high performers in business, health, and relationships. As a collective, we have built and helped build 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses, dominate in multiple industries, coached and played in professional sports leagues, and developed some of the strongest and most intimate relationships, both professional and personal. This isn't your average podcast. It's for the hungry, the dedicated, the doers, for those that have a dream and truly want that dream to become reality. People who want to take action, leave their ego at the door, and own every level of their life. If that's you, then step into the Coaches Council as we rewrite the truths to living that high-performance life.
Welcome back to another week of the Coaches Council. We have John, Craig, Pradeep, and Brian. Fellas, welcome back to another solid week. I want to jump right in today. We had a listener actually reach out as she was wanting to get into a program, and this hashtag is blown up. A lot of people know it. It's 75 hard. Mr. Frizella's 75 hard. The basis behind it is 75 days of a very strict protocol. Now, the consistency of the protocol can be very different, but it's select laundry list of things that you have to do in a day. Like you have to read 10 pages out of a book. You have to drink a certain amount of water. You have to do 45-minute workouts, one in which is outside. You have to stick to a diet, doesn't matter which one. And so these are the things that you have to do in it. This in particular individual had reached out and said she was in the midst of a divorce. She was building a business. And just when was the right time to do a challenge? Because she had failed so many times. And the premise of it is really to develop discipline, to develop the grit, to develop mental toughness, all of these strategies that innately are going to help you in life. But she was finding the opposite effect and was wanting to kind of reach out to us. So I'm curious what everybody's thought is on kind of the question, when is the best time to enter into a challenge like this? Or I'm going to kind of paraphrase what she was asking is, what is the best way to develop those characteristics as well? So, Craig, I know you've got a lot to say on this topic, and productivity is your biggest thing. What is your opinion on this, coming from the fitness realm and now being a business advisor to some of the biggest executives?
First, I would say, Justin, that people need to stop being really hard on themselves if they can't follow through on these things. It's an arbitrary challenge. Like, you finish this challenge and it is neither necessary nor sufficient for you to be successful in life to have finished a challenge like that. I think in some cases they can certainly be helpful. They can kickstart somebody's confidence and better habits. But again, I don't know if anybody on this thing has done it, and we've done okay in life. And so the other thing is, a lot of people get really hard on themselves about not being part of the 5 a.m. club. And it's all these labels that other people put on themselves that, we see others doing something, therefore we have to do something. Well, why not encourage a little bit of independent thinking and just look and go, is this actually going to be beneficial for me? Of all of the things that I can devote my willpower to, and research shows that willpower is a depletable resource, much like your muscle energy is a depletable resource. And much like in a marathon, you hit a wall physically, you hit a wall in discipline, willpower, and intention over the course of the day and in the course of your life. You only have the certain amount of discipline, willpower, and intention to devote to so many things. And as your friend, our listener was saying, there was a lot going on in the life. And if you imagine your brain as a computer operating system, there is only so much CPU that you can devote to all the programs that are open. And anybody who's ever had multiple programs open knows that you either get a color wheel of death or a blue screen or whatever computer program that you're using ends up happening from demanding too much of the computer. So that is to say, at the end of the day, the thing that I've found, and I've run many, many weight loss transformation contests with thousands of people that have entered, I always found that 80% of them would drop out, which was remarkable considering the fact that it was free to enter my contests. I was paying the winners to lose weight. So they were getting all the benefits, no negatives. It didn't cost anything. And yet I found that 80% of people dropped out. And oftentimes it was people who I thought, like, wow, this person's probably just going to crush it here. They're single, they don't have any dependents, they have a good job, they have a personal trainer, they have my programs, they have all the nutrition. And sure enough, after 2 weeks, they're gone. Then the single mom of 5 comes along and wins the contest. The woman who has 2 part-time jobs, where does she find the time? Well, she makes the time because at the end of the day, those who stick with any of these challenges or any changes in their life, the reason why they do is because they have a meaningful incentive, a reason why to do it. And I bet Andy had a reason why to do the 75 hard, to come up with it, that he had to make some change in his life. And because of that, and I actually found a quote from him recently that is very up my alley, which was, he admits that he's a very lazy person, and the only reason he's successful is because he puts guardrails on his life. I'm very lazy fundamentally, and I put up guardrails in my life that force me to be productive. Andy does the same sort of thing. And so what we need to do is, one, have a meaningful incentive for making any change in life, and then build the systems and guardrails in place that support this success in any of these challenges. And I guess the third thing is, if you make it 43 days of the 75 hard and you drop out, you're not a loser.
I think you're exactly right. And what is it? What happens through that psychological aspect when you're doing something like this alone? And we're just using 75 hard here because that was the example that was given. But it could literally be anything that comes about. And Brian, I want to go to you because you've created this inclusive atmosphere at FNS and have really built your entire platform around this. Somebody that's going through this, and to Craig's point, adding one more thing on top of an already crazy schedule, things that are happening, taking up this mental capacity to do something that's putting them outside of their realm that they believe is truly going to help them get to that next level, but continually fail or fall short. What would that next step be for that person?
I think there's 2 types of people that take on challenges. There's the one type of person that when they sign up for a challenge, and much like, Craig's talking about, and we've done so many challenges as anybody has, there's the mindset of, well, it'd be great if this happened. Like they start off with this excited intention that like, oh, this would be great. This sounds fun. This is, I'm excited about potentially this idea of this challenge. Now, in my opinion, those are the majority of the people who fall off. See, when it comes to a challenge, what happens is there's 3 levels. Everybody starts off the challenge with and there's 3 E's. And this is the way my simple brain works. I have to put everything with letters together. First one is enthusiasm. Everybody's excited for a challenge. Hey, you want to do a challenge? You ask your friend, you ask your coworker. Oh, you think about all the exciting thing you think about the end result. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be this. Now, enthusiasm lasts about a day. For some people, it lasts an hour. For some people, it lasts a week. See, people have a certain level of challenge conditioning stamina, that I would call it. They only have like somebody can only run so far. Some people only have a certain stamina that they can take on a challenge and go so far. Now, the second E is the endurance. See, this is what really separates those people who are truly dedicated towards the cause. It's more of a must-do mindset than, it'd be nice if I won this challenge. It'd be nice if I won this weight loss challenge and got that $1,000 at the end. Those people are never going to win. Because when you get in the endurance state, everything tests you. It's not a deal with your lifestyle. You've got to make sacrifices. You got to make changes. So that's where it eliminates a lot of people, is in that second bucket, is because they don't have the endurance to last in the challenge conditioning stamina. And that 30, if you make it past that far, you're able to elevate, right? But the big, long one that really eliminates a lot of people in any type of challenge is that endurance. Now, it all goes back to what problem are you trying to solve? Like a challenge, think about just the essence of a challenge. Think of it like a movie. You got a challenge, you're attacking a villain. There's a challenge, there's a problem, and you've got to attack this thing, there's a villain. So much in the same aspect, right? Your villain may not be the weight loss. Maybe your villain is keeping promises to yourself, or distractions, or organizing your schedule, or procrastination. And so you have to see which battle are you really fighting with this challenge. What challenge do you really need to do? Maybe a 75 hard is a great challenge for somebody who wants to lose weight, but somebody else is doing it because they're seeing if they're able to keep promises to themselves that they can do something every single day. So I would say challenges are great. Challenges are how we grow in life. It's impossible. All of us are dealing with challenges every single day. But ours are self-imposed challenges because we know that's the only way that's going to get to the next level. But it is about the intent of what that challenge is for the excitement of the problem that we're truly trying to solve in our life. And really, if the pain isn't bigger than the problem, when you're hit with that obstacle, you'll give up every single time. But when you know this thing, I don't give a shit what's thrown at me. When you know that pain is so strong, only then are you up for a challenge that you have a chance to win, is when your pain is bigger than the problem. If your problem is bigger than your pain, ain't nothing going to ever change, because that's just how it is. And so I think it starts with that intention. Why are you doing it? What's the villain that you're really trying to fight? Set your own rules to that game plan about what you're trying to attack it with. And as Craig said, maybe 75 hard is the thing, but dude, if somebody was doing nothing hard and then they do 43 days hard, that's a fuck all 4,300% increase of what you just did. So I sure should be celebrating the fact that you went that far. And maybe that somebody says, can I just do something consistent? So I think we overcomplicate it because we have the wrong intentions, which leads to the wrong metrics, which leads to I'm a failure because I didn't complete X, Y, Z. So create your own scoreboard, be intentional, and understand what villain you're really trying to fight with whatever challenge.
I love where you come at with that. And it really comes down to celebrating those little wins, celebrating the things that you do actually get out of it, and knowing that you're one day better, you're one day better, you're one moment better, you're one action better. And Pradeep, I'm curious to ask how this, because I mean, you're not working in fitness, you're working with your clients on this realm and kind of taking this approach of a challenge, a lot of times self-imposed. Why are we innately so hard on ourselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I go back to what Craig was talking about. Why are you doing the challenge in the first place? I think I run across this all the time when I'm working with guys, especially in business. One of the biggest challenges that I see with guys is that they end up starting so many businesses at the same time. And I don't know what it is, but they're going down so many different avenues. And my first question is like, why are you doing that? What are you trying to achieve? A lot of the times they're waiting for that one hit wonder. They're waiting for something to strike so that they can say, you know what, I hit the golden success. But ultimately, if I think of challenges, I think it really comes down to we're looking for some kind of growth, some kind of personal progress in our life, we've developed a new skill, or for some people, it's actually feeling like they're in control of their life. And it just comes back to what is that reason and what are you willing to do? I don't know if there's a perfect time to have a challenge. I know there's lots of people out there that have just done it. They've had the world totally against them and they've completed challenges and they feel like they're on top of the world at the end of the day. But I'm also a firm believer in being smart, because there is a certain finite amount of resources that you have, energy that you have, mental capacity that you have, emotional capacity. And I think you have to use that wisely, because if you time it appropriately, you might actually get better results. So rather than doing everything at once or taking on a massive challenge while you're trying to do all of these other things, yes, if you get through it, you might have some great confidence, but what if you did take some time, had some patience? That's one of the things I think that we lack here in society these days, is just patience. because everybody wants things so quick. And I just think of a lot of these health challenges, for example, it's like, okay, lose 20 pounds in a week and a half or whatever that is. But is that, and you guys are the experts in the industry, is that super healthy to lose that much weight that fast? I don't know. But what I'm suggesting is that we're so used to getting, I call it the popcorn society. It's instant popcorn, right? You put the bag in, you hit a couple buttons and it pops out for you. I think there's something to be said about timing your challenges as well, because you can get a better result if you're a little bit more patient and you actually put some more time, more effort, and more focus. Again, what Craig talks about, a lot of it is focus. And I think that's what we miss a lot out on society these days, is the more focused you are. And I like to, the analogy I like to use is that a lot of people these days are like an octopus. They have their tentacles in all of these different areas. That's what life is like. But if you take a look at one of the most powerful instruments out there is an axe. An axe can easily split wood. And why is that? Is because there's so much force focused on a fine edge and concentrated in one particular area that it splits wood like ease. So if we use that focus and actually pay attention to what we actually have in front of us, the challenges that we have in front of us, maybe one at a time, maybe a couple at a time, we might actually get better results. So ultimately, I think there is no perfect timing. I think it just has to come down to your reasons for doing that challenge and what kind of outcomes you want.
We'd be remiss if we didn't take this time to thank our sponsors that allow us to reach you each and every week. The Coaches Council is powered by Canai Brands, a lab-tested, all-natural, pure hemp CBD company without the presence of THC. They encompass our passion for health, wellness, and fitness that we have on the Coaches Council. Visit canaibrands.com and at checkout, use the promo code COACHES20 to enhance your wellness journey. We talked about it on the episode of Is Really Anything Extraordinary? And then we touched on it again on building patience. And John was talking about how everything happens iteratively. And if we look at A to Z or A to Z here in America, we are going through these stages of progression. And to Brian's point, and even to Craig's point, day 1 to day 43, I guarantee you got better. I guarantee you made great strides towards being whatever you see yourself at Z being. But John, and I want to kind of get your point of view on the psychology of this, is in getting to that point, why are we just so damn hard on ourselves? Why can we not give ourselves a little bit of self-love and enjoy the process of slowly growing that bubble so that we take a look back a year from now, maybe it takes us to complete 75 hard, or 2 years, or whatever self-imposed challenge we've had on ourselves to create the growth we're looking for. But it's boom, we want it now.
This is partially psychophysiological with our increasing dependence on dopaminergic stimulation, and the fact that we are being conditioned, and the technology that we have available to us is allowing us to get the type of gratification that we want faster and faster. And so it's really affecting us both in a physiological way and a hormonal way or a neurotransmitter way, but also it's the way that we are socialized. Warren Buffett asked why more people don't follow his advice or lionize what he has done with Berkshire Hathaway, and he answered, nobody wants to get rich slowly. And that is possibly a function of our baseline humanity, but it is also to do with the way that we are socialized, the conversation that's happening around these things in our society. Now, we have all of the evidence that says the people who are the most successful are the ones who recognize that things need to be done iteratively, but then we tend to gravitate towards that which is more extreme and flashy. I was just listening to my good friend, Dr. Andrew Huberman, on Joe Rogan's podcast. And if you haven't listened to it yet, it just came at the time of this recording, it just came out like 2 days ago. And he was talking about how as humans, our perception of space-time is filtered through a system, and the way our brains work is we we assess for duration first, and because brains are really attempting, we're gauging things by how long they're going to take. It is very natural from a physiological perspective to try to make things shorter. And to what Brian was saying, there is a point at like, why do people quit? Andrew was positing on the podcast. We're not injured. If you're running and you're tired, you can probably keep going, but there's something that happens where you just stop going, and that's because this expectation of duration has been exceeded, and that has to be trained to go longer and longer, and that too happens iteratively, and it happens when you're in this state of excitement, and then recovery. And people seek to shorten duration because they perceive that things that are difficult can be made less. They could, if you make them more difficult, they could be done in less time, which shows you like why 75 hard is appealing. The idea that 75 days is not that long of a time. It's 3 sets of 25 days, so overall it's less than 3 months. It's 75. What I don't like about 75 hard as a challenge is that it starts over. And, if you miss a day, and that does not allow for iterative progress. And I'll talk about this just from my own perspective on what I see of that challenge in particular. And then we'll circle back to the question of when is the good time. But the problem with that challenge is that it is so static and arbitrary, to use Craig's parlance. Whereas I think most challenges, if you really looked at them and went in asking yourself, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this? Because it is helpful to be outcome oriented if you are trying to enjoy and get something out of the process. Even when you're trying to learn to enjoy the process, there needs to be some sort of fundamental expectation of outcome, or we won't do it. And so when people just trust the process, just enjoy the process, there still needs to be iterative outcomes. So going into the idea of something like 75 hard, many people are so focused on what the outcome could be if they were to do all 75 days perfectly and get the internet gold star that they're so desperately for. What would my body look like? What would my life look like? How would my body change if for 75 days I drank all the water I was supposed to, I got all the sleep I was supposed to? What would my brain look like if I read? What if I got those 2 workouts in a day? If that's but there are so many goals that you can set within that. What if your goal was, I've never done anything for 75 days in a row, and so I'm just going to, that's the muscle I want to train right now. And so instead of the idea of starting over if you don't hit your water on one of the days, you keep going and you make the acknowledgement that tomorrow you'll be better on water, because the first muscle to train is that resilience and that endurance muscle, to use Brian's parlance. That's the muscle that needs to be trained first. Before you could do 75 hard, you probably need to just do 75, whether that's 75 easy or 75 in some sort of oscillating difficulty. That needs to be trained. And the getting the value out of that, the reward of being able to do anything for the amount of time you said you were going to do it, regardless of the success of the individual days, that's the most important thing. And when you look at a challenge like 75 hard, which sets a lot of benchmarks very high, it's extremism in its most ridiculous, because in a post-Goggins world, we are all ideologically understanding that there is a capability to do it, but it isn't necessarily beneficial. If you go from doing 75 of nothing on 750 of nothing to try and do 75 hard, where is the rest? Where is the
here's the thing, John. It's just everybody needs to take a step back and realize how incredibly arbitrary this is, and the fact that if Andy didn't have a platform, which he has earned, a platform that he's earned. If somebody just walked up to you and said, "Hey, you're going to do 75 hard. This is how it goes," he was just like, "No, nice to meet you. I'm going to go over here now." And so it is really just looking for this gold star. And I think a lot of people probably just want to be able to say that they did it and don't even look for they're like, at the end of 75 hard, here's what I will have accomplished. Being able to say that I did 75 hard. Yeah, that's not a reason to change your life. I met a cardiovascular doctor who was doing this. And he was taller than me and weighed 100 and maybe 140 pounds, and said, yeah, man, I'm doing 75 hard. I've lost 15 pounds.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like,
you should probably do like 75 easy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is exactly how this was designed to go.
I think that
maybe it was.
I think that from what I've read from Andy talking about this, it's extreme because it's designed to show you that you are capable of doing more and handling more than you currently believe you are. And it's one approach to that, which is like dump everything on you and see how you do. But to me,
well, I'm going to interrupt you again, John.
Please do.
I like how you brought up Goggins, right? So I read Goggins' book, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I am capable of more, and everybody is. And so I thought, okay, do I go and run 100 miles? And the answer is no, I don't want to. I don't see any reason how that would be beneficial. I'd probably be the guy that dies doing it. And I don't need the injuries from it, but I understand the idea. And so what is it that I love? What is it that would be a hard challenge for me that would, in fact, increase my self-confidence if I was able to do it? And so I decided that on the first of every month, I do not eat. I do not eat on the first of every month. So it really becomes a 36-hour fast from about 8 o'clock the night before to 8 o'clock the morning of the second. And I don't like it. And I negotiate with myself. I'm already negotiating around the next first, which is about a week away. We did the last one on July 1st, which is Canada Day, our version of Independence Day. And it was like, well, maybe we should take that day off and do the 30th of June. And it was like, no, that's not what this is about. This is about you suffering at 9 o'clock at night when everybody's watching fireworks and drinking and eating, just to show that you have some self-control. So I designed a challenge for myself that gives me more results than running a 100-mile race, even though I'd be able to say, like Drew and David Goggins said, I'd run a 100-mile race. It wasn't right for me. I have a little phrase I'll just leave everybody with, and I'll let John speak up again. But I just have this phrase: do the right things right now for your right life. Always do that. And that doesn't mean be selfish, because supporting other people, being a good Samaritan is the right thing for your right life because you want your community to be safe and sound. But do the right challenge for your right position in life, for your right future is another way to rephrase it.
I think really what you're talking about is the idea of like what is the spirit of something rather than the letter of something. The thing that anyone can get from any challenge is to challenge themselves. And with someone like Craig, who's been through so many challenges, and he understands that this is a specific muscle that needs to be trained. And I think that any challenge, anything you commit to, any challenge puts you in a position where at some point you will be in that self-conversation, that table of self-negotiation, where it's like your commitment versus your rationalization and trying to find a way to get out of it. And the more practice you have, and this is discipline. This is the definition of discipline. It's doing the things you say you're going to do despite adversity. Even when you don't want to. And that's the muscle that needs to be trained. 75 hard is some arbitrary way to do it. And I think that it's way more beneficial for Andy than it is for everyone else doing it, which I may have been his intention. But it's one way to put something out into the world. Let's try this. Two, to answer this woman, firstly, if you got 43 days in, if you got a week and you missed your water, if there was one day where it was not raining and you couldn't go for the outside workout, it's okay. You're doing more than you were previously, and over time, you will see you negotiate with yourself less.
It goes back to, John, I want to interrupt for a second because, Craig, you've talked about this before, and it is the Navy SEAL mentality of, because John, you just brought it up, if it's raining outside. Well, on Frizella's podcast, he was describing what 75 hard was, and he goes, if it's going to be a hurricane outside, if it's possible tornadoes. He goes, I've gotten it done, and it's up to you guys. You can, if there's no negotiation, no excuses, you get it done. And Craig, back to your point, it's like, if you make your bed in the morning, are you really going to be a good businessman? And there's this type of hardness that I think is misconstrued in our society, that it truly does go back to the discipline that John is talking about, to you figure out a way to get it done, even if it is outside of the confines of what has theoretically been put forth.
Well, I'll say to this that I know, and this is kind of slightly related, but I know a guy who's built $100 million business. Over a period of time, he did not read a single book. And in fact, he never really read books, even when he was in college and high school. Now, he reads books now, but this just goes to show you that there really isn't anything, and I love this phrase that I got from a critical thinking class in university. There is very little that is necessary and sufficient, like that you absolutely must have this thing, or that if you have this thing, results are guaranteed. There is very little that is necessary and sufficient in life, and especially for success in business. So reading books, like everybody says, oh, I got to read a book a week, or whatever, I'm the 52 book a year challenge or something, or whatever it is. Like, books are helpful, but if you're just reading a book to pile up books in your library, that's not necessarily the right approach to growing a great business. And so everything just needs some self-reflection and introspection about, why am I doing X? And I love what Brian said about the challenges are kind of a way of fighting a villain. Well, okay, you don't have Andy's villains. You have your own villains. And we all have our own villains. And so go find your own challenge that defeats your own villains. And that way, that will bring your better self to the world, I think.
I absolutely agree. Everybody has their own things that they struggle with. And it's what practice can I put in place where I don't negotiate my way out of doing the hard thing? And just a great example for me is white lies. Like, if I'm going to be late for something, my first instinct is to make up some outrageous excuse. And instead, this cat jumped out of nowhere. And then there was a battle between the cat and I don't know why. It was just like, I had to be perfect when I was a kid. And anytime I had fucked up, I had to have a good reason. Like, why were you late? I was like, so just, I'm forthright in all of my communication now. It's like, anytime there's an opportunity to tell a little white lie, I tell it, just like, this is exactly what happened. And a lot of times is like, I was watching the podcast. I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast and I just got distracted. I'm sorry. And the thing that helps me is I say that and nothing bad happens. So I collect evidence over time that there's no consequence for just being okay telling the truth. And in the same way, you do whatever habit it is, whether it's 75 hard or whatever, and you collect evidence that nothing bad is going to happen to you, and you build this muscle. But most of us, the way is, we negotiate our way out of doing the things that are challenging for us because we fear consequences or we fear change in some way. So to this woman, what I would say is, firstly, keep going. Don't stop. Do 75 medium, 75 just finish that. Commit to finishing whatever it is. And then as to the right time to start a challenge. And this is going to be the first of our Roman wrap up, with Justin has tasked me with, of ending out these. So the assessment is this beneficial for me in some way? Assess into which of these categories you fall into. And it's, am I a person who right now is going to thrive from a lot of structure, or is that additional structure feeling like responsibility and wearing down that willpower? In the case of this particular listener, and I hope you are listening today, it sounds like you're going through a difficult time. There's a divorce and there's work and there's all of these things. You're going to be reacting to those one of two types of ways. For someone like me, when there's so much outside of my control, it would help to have something like 75 hard or some other challenge I give myself, simply because it creates a ballast. It creates something of structure, and where the only thing stopping me from doing it is me and my willpower. Because when so much in my life is spinning outside of my control, adding something that I can control, whether it's making my bed or going for a walk or doing 75 hard, helps me return to some semblance of balance, because that ballast allows me to feel like, all right, at least I control this. And that is very, very prominent. It's a very prominent feature in people like myself who suffer from mental illness like depression or anxiety. On the other side of that, there are people who, adding one more thing, one more ball to the host of balls you're already juggling, it's going to be a greater expense. The ROI will not be there. And perhaps it is beneficial for you to take on a challenge that is smaller. I don't know that I would be able to look at any 10 people and be able to pick out the one who is in exactly the right position to try and do 75 hard perfectly. But I suspect that person would be someone like Andy, who is an entrepreneur, who has responsibilities, but makes their own schedule and has already developed the resilience of overcoming a lot of challenges. It's very rarely going to be someone who is a neophyte. So with all of these things, whether it is taking on a challenge and the timing of that, or deciding which challenge to take on, do what we have recommended here. To Brian's point, decide which villain are you trying to fight, which goes back to my point of, are you trying to build the habit of completing something regardless of whether or not you do it perfectly over that time? And to Craig's point, can you find something to challenge you in some way right now? To Pradeep's point, is it something that's going to make sense for you and make you a better person, allow you to show up in a life you want the right way? So it's all about self-assessment. What am I trying to get out of this? How can I get something out of it? And will this make me better in my life right now, or is it going to make things harder? And that is the first time you will sit down across from yourself and negotiate and decide what's right for you. It's not 75 hard for most people. So take that, and I'll throw it back to Justin for the sign off.
And let me share one thing, John. Yeah. That was perfect. And I love this that I heard recently. If you want more self-confidence is gained by keeping simple promises you make to yourself. For some people, 75 is going to be simple. Like, I could do that. I couldn't do it a long time ago, but maybe 7.5 days is going to be the simple promise you make to yourself, or one day. But keep the simple promises to yourself, because all roads lead to any challenges, you increasing self-confidence. And when you increase self-confidence, that's why somebody wants to read a lot of books, because they don't feel confident in the education that they have right now. So they pick that. So all challenges lead to that road. That's a challenge I have for everybody. Keep the simple promises. I love the white lies. John, that's perfect, right? Because maybe that deals with some level of authenticity at your deepest root core, that you're like, I don't like not being myself and having to fake this, like it compromises who I am. So by keeping that simple promise of being authentic and genuine, you walk away with so much more fulfillment. I think it's these little things like that that are so profound and so powerful in people's lives that they start so grandiose. Make it simple by keeping simple promises. That's it.
Love it, guys. Find your villain, set your own challenge, be yourself. And as always, stay hungry, stay humble, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of the Coaches Council. If it wasn't for you viewers and listeners, we wouldn't have a platform. So again, it's all about you guys. And we want to give you a reward just for listening. We want to give you access to each one of our coaches for a little bit deeper, intimate experience. So if you go to coaches-council.com, coaches-council.com, subscribe and like to whatever platform you're viewing on, you're going to be entered to have that one-on-one experience. So be sure to go coaches-council.com and really interact with us, because we would love to interact with you. Until then, stay safe, stay hungry, stay humble, and thanks for listening.